Hello guys, welcome to the fiction series. Today we are gonna see, what if Naruto was the master of Jiongu and got harem? Part 1. If you want more awesome fan fiction like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. So without wasting any time, let's get into the video. Hiruzen Sarutobi was a tired man. He had retaken the position of Hokage only a year ago, after his successor, now predecessor, Minato Namikaze, died after the disaster that was the Kyuubi attack. Hiruzen sighed as he gazed at the picture of the blonde man. Why did he die when he had so much to live for? He remembered the night clearly. He was sitting in his office writing in his journal while his wife, Bawako, Minato, and his wife Kushina were in a secret location so Kushina could give birth. Kushina was a Jinchuriki, a container of one of the 9 Bijuu of the Kyuubi. And when a female Jinchuriki goes into labor, the energy holding their seal together weakens and the Bijuu has a chance to go free. Minato, being the expert seal master that he is, was in charge of holding the seal together while Kushina was giving birth. Everything was set up perfectly. However, something happened and the Kyuubi was freed. And it severely damaged the village and killed countless civilians and shinobi alike. Minato was able to take the Bijuu out of the village and seal it away, inside his own son no less. Hiruzen was forced to witness the sealing as Minato put up a barrier around him, Kushina, Kyuubi, and their son, Naruto. The Sandaime was confused as to why Minato felt that he had to do the sealing. He knew how to perform the Reaper Death Seal. All Minato would have to do would be putting the 8 trigram seal and he would be able to live with his family. But then again, he never did tell anyone that he could do the Reaper Death Seal, now that he thinks about it. When the barrier was lifted, Minato was already dead. The Reaper Death Seal, which summoned the Shinigami, had taken his soul as payment for the sealing, but Kushina was still hanging on to what little life remained within her. The Kyuubi had pierced both her and Minato when it attempted to strike Naruto and prevent itself from being sealed. Both parents had sacrificed themselves to protect their child. Kushina was able to tell Hiruzen Naruto's name and that both she and Minato wanted him to protect their child. Both of them were dead with a smile on their faces. Hiruzen knew that Jinchuriki were treated harshly, but because Kushina's status as one was kept a tight secret, he didn't know how harshly. The meeting that followed changed everything for both him and Naruto. Flashback council chambers 1 year ago. There will be order in this room. Hiruzen yelled as the chaotic sounds threatened to make everyone deaf. Especially from the civilian side. Everyone was silent at the Sandaime's voice, not to mention the annoyed glare he was sending to people he knew would cause problems. A baby Naruto was in his arms as he, somehow, slept through the noise that was the council. Sandaime-sama. How can you expect us to be calm at a time like this? We've only just survived a crisis. A civilian member pointed out. I understand that you are all still nervous, Hiruzen said. However, we will not be acting like children who were just let out for recess. Where is Minato-sama? Hiashi Hyuga asked, pointing out the absence of their yondaime. Everyone else had noticed this as well and began asking where he was. Hiruzen let out a deep sigh and began, Minato has died sealing the Kyuubi. Sealing it where? Shikakunara asked. Hiruzen knew he was going to regret this, inside this little boy. Almost immediately, the entire civilian side of the council erupted into chaos. It's the demon. Kill it now before it's too late. The yondaime turned it into a baby so we could have our revenge. Silence. Hiruzen yelled, using chakra to make his voice louder than necessary. The civilians quieted down, but sent intense glares towards the baby. Naruto was able to feel the glares and shifted uncomfortably in Hiruzen's arms, his face twitching with fear. Seeing this, Hiruzen slowly rocked his arms in an attempt to soothe the baby. Naruto stopped squirming, but was still looking afraid. Hiruzen called over an Anbu with a horse mask and handed Naruto to him. This boy is Minato's legacy. He sealed the Kyuubi inside him so that he could use its power to defend Konoha. He is not the demon, Hiruzen said with a glare. Hiashi noticed something familiar about the boy, especially his blue eyes, and made a note to talk to the Sandaime later. Effective immediately, I shall be reinstated as the Hokage, and everything that has been said in this room about the Kyuubi is to be an S-rank secret punishable by death, the Sandaime declared with a heated glare. IQB. While everyone had their attention on the Sandaime's declaration, nobody noticed a civilian council member sneaking behind horse and knocked him over, grabbed Naruto, and used the knife he had on him to attack Naruto. However, because of his shaking nerves, he cut Naruto from his right shoulder down to his hip, slicing the boy into 2 pieces. Hiruzen was instantly upon the boy, using what little healing knowledge he had to try and help him. Yuma had his kunai piercing the councilman's throat, killing him instantly. All while Naruto was crying loudly from the pain and from the red aura that was surrounding him. Instantly, the civilians began to panic. The demon's going to kill us all. Finish it now, you old fool. The Sandaime began barking orders, "Bird, get everyone out of here, Hiashi, Shikaku, Choza, and Inoichi stay. Rabbit, get me an available medic Nin. Horse, make sure that we have no more attacks. Go." All three Anbu jumped into action. Bird shoved all of the uncooperative civilians out of the door while the clan heads went silently. Some of the civilians had to be threatened with the Anbu's tanto. Rabbit had jumped out of the window and raced towards the hospital, hoping that there was a medic available. Meanwhile, Hiruzen was desperately trying to slow down the bleeding with the Mystic Palm Jutsu. While he was able to use it to a decent degree, he was only able to slow down the bleeding to a small amount. "What can we do?" Choza Akimichi asked. "Unless any of us knows a healing jutsu that is more powerful than what the Hokage is using, then there's nothing that can be done," Hiashi said. "This is extremely troublesome," Shikaku said as he stood wide awake. "I'm afraid that you're right," Inoichi Yamanaka sighed as he looked away from the crying baby. Inside the seal. The QB was growling in frustration as it pushed its chakra through the seal into his container's body. His 9 tails were waving around in a frenzied manner, showing his hidden nervousness. "Human stupidity will never cease to amaze me," QB growled as one of its tails began to slowly shrink. "That Hokage of theirs better come up with something soon, I don't know how long I will be able to do this," he muttered as he continued to push chakra through the cage. Council chamber. "Hokage-sama," Rabbit said as he appeared back into the room. "There is no available medic, they are all treating victims of the QB attack." The Hokage cursed as he continued working while sweat began to gather on his brow. He had used too much chakra during the attack and was starting to feel the strain. "Horse, carry Naruto while I continue to heal him, everyone, come with us into my office. Rabbit, head back out into the village and try to find any more survivors," the Hokage said, while Horse carefully picked up the wailing boy. Rabbit bowed and vanished in a puff of smoke. "And please pick up his arm," he added. Inoichi decided to pick up the dismembered appendage since he's seen worse things in the minds of prisoners. The party of 7 slowly made their way to the Hokage's office. Choza opened the door and everyone entered. "Hiashi, can you take over the healing while I get what may be able to save him? Horse, I want you to stand guard and make sure that nobody interrupts us. I don't care if it's the Rikido Sennin himself." "Nobody enters?" Hiruzen asked. Hiashi nodded and activated his Byakugan while using the healing jutsu his wife had taught him. While Horse handed the crying Naruto to Choza before he exited the room. "Let's be thankful that Hitomi taught you a couple of her healing jutsus," Shikaku said as he watched the healing. Hiashi just nodded as he kept concentrating. Hiruzen walked towards the picture of the Shodaime, Hashirama Senju, and picked it off of the wall, revealing a small seal on the wall. He bit his thumb and made a few hand signs and smeared his blood on the wall. In a puff of smoke came a medium-sized scroll. He placed the scroll on his desk and began to unravel it, searching through the scroll desperately. "Here it is." Hiruzen shouted triumphantly while spreading more of the scroll out, revealing what appeared to be a sealing formula. "What is it?" Shikaku asked as he looked at the scroll. "The only thing that may be able to save Naruto," Hiruzen said. "Bring him over here." Choza and Hiashi slowly walked over and placed Naruto on the desk, Inoichi placed his dismembered arm next to him. "What I'm going to need of all of you is that you channel your chakra through Naruto when I activate this," Hiruzen said as he beckoned everyone around the boy. Hiashi was still healing him, but the injury was starting to get worse. The clan heads and the Hokage placed their hands around the boy and began molding their chakra. "Please forgive me, Minato, but if I don't do this, Naruto will die." Hiruzen apologized in his thoughts. The Sandaime then made several hand sighs before ending on dragon and shouting, "Kinjutsu. Jungu transfer." The scroll began to glow, and hundreds of black tendrils erupted from the seal before they lunged towards Naruto and began to burrow their way inside his body. Everyone began to feel a drain on their chakra and saw that the tendrils were touching their hands while absorbing the chakra at a fast pace. Eventually, Hiruzen dropped down to one knee as he ran out of chakra to give. Following him was Shikaku, Inoichi, and Hiashi. Choza was able to hang on for a little while longer before he had to pull back, his face covered in sweat. Everyone was forced to watch as Naruto was enveloped in red chakra that the tendrils were also absorbing. They were slowly turning a crimson color as the chakra was absorbed. Inside the seal. Even the QB was feeling the drain on its chakra as the tendrils began to nestle in Naruto's body. All that he had left was 2 tails worth of chakra. "This may be draining, but I can see the benefits that this will give the kid," QB noted as he observed the changes going through Naruto's body. "It's done, but I'm going to have to sleep for a while because of this," the chakra beast mumbled as he laid his head on his paws and began to close his eyes. Before he closed his eyes, he thought, "I'm interested in seeing how this will play out in the future. I've got my eye on you, kid." With that, the QB closed his eyes and entered a well-deserved rest. Outside. Everyone was taking deep breaths as they tried to recover some of their chakra. They looked and saw that the tendrils had stopped moving through the boy's body, but several of them were still wiggling out of the space where he was dismembered. The tendril shot out and grabbed his arm before pulling it towards him and stitching the arm back to his body. The arm began to move around as Naruto began to use it normally. He was still crying due to all that happened. What was that? Inoichi asked as he shakily got to his feet. Hiruzen used his desk to get up and said, a kinjutsu that the Shodaime stole from Taki after they tried to assassinate him. What does it do? Shikaku asked as he observed the now sleeping blonde. It turns the person using it into a host for thread-like tendrils and gives them a wide range of abilities, the Hokage explained. What kind of abilities? Shikaku inquired. The Sandaime took a deep breath before starting. It will allow Naruto to absorb the hearts of his enemies and gain their elemental affinity, plus the knowledge of whatever jutsu they might know. I'll have to look though the scroll for any more information. As if he didn't have enough of a burden already, Choza sighed as he pitied Naruto. It wasn't even 2 hours after his birth and already his life was being turned upside down. There is a question I have for you, Hokage-sama, Hiashi started. Yes. What is it, Hiashi? Hiruzen asked. Is this boy Minato and Kushina's child? Hiashi asked. Hiruzen's eyes widened along with Choza's and Inoichi's. Shikaku just closed his eyes and muttered troublesome under his breath. The Sandaime reached under his desk and activated the privacy seals that closed off the room from anyone outside. How did you figure that out? Hiruzen asked. Two things stood out to me, Hiashi began. 1. I noticed that Naruto had very distinctive blonde color in his hair and that his blue eyes were almost exactly like Minato's. And 2. I knew Minato since he was my teammate, he would never ask anyone to give up their child if he was unable to give up his own. Hiruzen sighed as he closed his eyes. Yes, Kushina told me that this was their son just moments before she moved on. She asked me to protect him to the best of my ability. However, I can't do too much without making it look like favoritism. He could enter one of our clans, after all, we were all friends with Minato, and we would want to make sure that his son would be taken care of, Choza suggested. Unfortunately, I can't allow that, the Sandaime said. Why not? Don't you want the best for Minato's son? Inoichi asked. The Sandaime sighed, feeling his age as the years began to weigh down on his body. I can't allow it because if I were to give one clan a Jinchuriki, it would cause a shift in power and create a civil war over who would own Naruto. As much as I hate to admit it, he's right, even though we all want to help Naruto, we need to think about what would happen in the future, Shikaku stated. What about Kakashi? Shouldn't we tell him about who Naruto is? Hiashi asked. No, think about it, he's already in a depression because he lost both his sensei and Kushina. If he tell him now, he'll fight tooth and nail just to claim ownership of him and practically make him a target because all of the other villages will think that the copycat ninja is training an apprentice, Shikaku said. When will he be told? Choza asked. After he gets out of his depression, he'll be able to handle the situation better when he has a clear head, the Sandaime said. What can we do to help Naruto then? I don't want him to have to go through life without someone to properly help him. You know that those civilians won't keep quiet with the news that he's the Jinchuriki, Inoichi said. Hiruzen put his hand to his chin and said, you three have children, correct? The Ino Shikacho trio nodded, and your wife is expecting in 2 months, right? Hiashi nodded his head. Then you can push your children to become his friends, Kami knows that he'll need plenty of close friends throughout his life. All men nodded in agreement. Now I believe it's time we return for the night. Hiashi, could you send Hitomi to me tomorrow? I would like a woman's opinion on how Naruto should be cared for, since I'll be taking care of him until the orphanage is repaired, Hiruzen said. Would you like me to tell her about what happened tonight? Hiashi asked. The Sandaime shook his head and said, I'll take on that task, you all need your rest if you want to lead your clans through this crisis. I trust that you all know not to speak about the events that happened in this office. The only reason I'm trusting you with this information is because you were all Minato's closest friends. No Hokage-sama, all 4 men said. The Hokage then lifted the privacy seals and dismissed the men before he wrapped Naruto in a cloth and held him in his arms, slowly rocking him to sleep. Flashback end. The Sandaime shook his head to get out of his remembering. He looked at the time and saw that it was almost 2 o'clock. Time to see how he's doing, Hiruzen thought as he stood up. The date was October 10th, the QB festival, or Naruto's birthday to those that cared. The Hokage left the Hokage tower and walked towards the orphanage that Naruto was placed in. He and the 4 clan heads were planning to spend the day with Naruto while he played with their children. As Hiruzen walked into the orphanage, the caretaker immediately bowed to him. Hokage-sama. We weren't expecting you. The woman said. Hiruzen waved her off and said, it's fine, I was just stopping by to pick up someone. And Naruto Uzumaki. He didn't miss the flash of disgust that passed through the caretaker's face once his name was mentioned. She quickly put on a forced smile and led the Hokage to a room where a small crib was. Inside the crib was a tiny baby with blonde hair and blue eyes. Hiruzen noticed that he was unhealthily thin and that there were faded bruises on his body. Why is he so thin? And covered in bruises? The Hokage asked, already knowing that the woman would lie. Hiruzen must have been a fortune teller because the woman said, he refuses to eat most of the food we give him and the bruises are because he keeps bumming into things when he crawls around. So you just let him crawl around unsupervised? Hiruzen asked, raising an eyebrow to make it look like he was believing the tall tale. Of course not, those are from when he gets out of his crib when he's supposed to be napping, the caretaker said as she believed that the Hokage believed her. Hiruzen knew just how to do two things, make Naruto happy and piss off the caretaker that was clearly doing her job to care for all children. Well, it looks like you're a little genius, aren't you Naruto-kun? Hiruzen said as he picked up Naruto. The small baby just looked at him with a small hint of fear on his face, something that didn't escape the aged Hokage's eyes. Well, we better get going, there are some people expecting us, Hiruzen said as he took Naruto in his arms and left the orphanage, leaving behind a fuming caretaker. She was hoping that the Hokage would get angry at the boy for the lies that she was telling him, but she didn't know that a shinobi was trained to detect lies. Only a trained shinobi could truly hide the truth from the lies. The Hokage then performed a shunshin and appeared at the Akimichi compound where Naruto was welcomed openly. He walked into a large, small in Akimichi standards, dining room where waiting for him was the Ino Shikacho trio and their children, and Hiashi, Hitomi, and Hinata Hyuga were also present. All of the children were in a small play area surrounded by a fence. Like his father, Shikamaru Nara was sleeping in a pile of stuffed animals. Choji Akimichi and Ino Yamanaka were playing with some building blocks, a small smile on their faces. Hinata was just sitting by herself while playing with a small stuffed fox and monkey. Hiruzen walked over to the children and placed Naruto in the play area, where he just nervously crawled over to the pile of stuffed animals and timidly picked up a stuffed from before hugging it gently. All of the adults watched as Naruto moved to a far corner and continued to hug the frog like it was a shield. Hiruzen saw how he would look at the other children with some fear in his eyes. Obviously there was more going on in the orphanage than he was aware of. I've failed all three of them, Hiruzen softly whispered. What are you talking about Hokage-sama? Inoichi asked. Hiruzen sighed and said, it appears that Naruto has had poor treatment in the orphanage. When I picked him up, he was very thin and there were bruises that were slowly healing. How can you allow them to continue doing this to him? Hitomi demanded with a glare. Hiruzen cringed at the woman's glare and said, I've had all the civilians who attempted to assassinate him executed, but I can't do anything to the people who work in the orphanage because it's controlled by the civilian council. All we can do is make sure that he gets the bonds that he needs, Choza said. Hey, look at this, Shikaku said, lazily pointing at the play area. All the adults looked and saw what was happening. Hinata had crawled over to Naruto and held out the stuffed fox for him to play with. Naruto looked at the fox before gently taking it. He then held out the stuffed frog for her to take, but Hinata just shook her head and gave him a small smile. Naruto then gave a small smile of his own before he started to play with Hinata. Aoi. Hitomi softly squealed at the cute sight. Hiruzen chuckled and turned towards Hiashi before asking, weren't you and Minato planning on a betrothal between your children? Yes, but we were planning on going over the details after Naruto's birth since he had no free time to spare beforehand, Hiashi said. Me and Kushina-chan supported it. Hitomi said. Did you think that they would like each other? Inoichi asked. Think? We knew that they would. Mother's intuition after all. Hitomi declared proudly. Shikaku sighed and said, troublesome, women just seem to know almost everything about their children. Well, they did give birth to them, Choza pointed out. Has there been any changes with his Jiongu? Hiashi asked. Hiruzen shook his head and said, the stitching is still there and some of the threads will wiggle out of his skin every once in a while, but there has been nothing else. Why doesn't the stitching go away? Hitomi asked. It stays there because the Jiongu allows the user to extend their limbs where they are stitched together, Hiruzen explained. When do you plan on telling him about it? Or the QP? Inoichi asked. I think I'll tell him about Jiongu when he's either 4 or 5. Of course, I'll have to come up with a cover story. He'll learn about the fox and the real reason he got Jiongu when he's a genin, Hiruzen said. That seems like a good idea, Shikaku said. Most clan children start training around that age, so he'll be just like them. And he'll probably be mature enough to handle the knowledge that he's a Jinchuriki when he's a genin. But, what if someone tells him about the QP beforehand? We'll cross that bridge if it comes to that, Choza said. Choza's right, we shouldn't worry about that right now. We should be celebrating Naruto's birthday, Hiruzen said. You know, speaking of telling people things, what are we going to do about Kakashi? Inoichi asked. He's still in depression. And it seems like he's taken a part of his lost team and made them as his own hobbies, Hitomi told him. Obito's chronic lateness and Sharingan, Choza said. Rin's concern for teammates, Shikaku said. Though he's not as worrisome as she was. And Minato's love for Jiraiya's books, though he only reads the smut while Minato just read his adventure story, Hiruzen said. Inside he was crying, I can't believe I had to call his holy work smut. Inoichi sighed and muttered, at this rate, he'll never know about Naruto's heritage. Not unless we stick Naruto next to a picture of his father, Hitomi said. I believe it's time we bring out the food, Choza said as he clapped his hands. Several servants came out with dishes in their hands. They set the table for all of the adults and children. All of the adults picked up their children from the play area and placed them next to them. Naruto was sitting next to Hiruzen and stared at the food hungrily. I was right, Hiruzen muttered as he saw how hungry Naruto was. Drrrrrrrr. Choza. Inoichi scolded. It wasn't me. The Akamichi head protested. Hitomi began to giggle behind her hand while Hiashi was fighting a smirk that was forming on his face. Something you'd like to share, Hitomi? Shikaku asked. That was Hinata's stomach. Hitomi laughed. A few moments later, everyone was laughing at that little piece of information, though Hiashi was just chuckling. Now that I think about it, Inoichi began, it's a good thing Minato was your teammate Hiashi. How so? The Hyuga head asked. Back when we were in the academy, you were as cold as your father was. When you trained with Minato, you began to open up more, not to mention you were starting to smile, instead of just giving everyone either a cold glare or arrogant smirk, Inoichi explained. Hiashi sighed and said I still have to act like a cold bastard with a stick up my arse around the Hyuga elders, so they think I'm still the Hyuga image of perfection, instead of how I am now. You must be an amazing actor then, Hiruzen said. Well, Jiraiya-sensei did make me the inside man when we would perform an infiltration mission, Hiashi explained. Minato-kun was a horrible actor, Hitomi remarked. Everyone nodded in agreement. Hiruzen looked down at his plate and saw that Naruto was practically inhaling whatever food he could reach. Choza, I think there's someone who could eat more than an Akamichi, Hiruzen said. Choza looked over and saw that Naruto was eating at a fast pace. Oh hell no. I'm not losing my title of biggest eater to a baby of all things. With that, Choza began to eat whatever food he could grab. Hitomi had to smack his hand away when he tried to grab a portion of Hinata's. After several minutes of watching the two, Naruto was eventually defeated by the round man. The small blonde yawned before he fell asleep in his chair. Oh Kami, he's going to eat everyone out of house and home. Hitomi cried. Please, just wait until he's introduced to ramen, then we can worry, Shikaku pointed out. It's a cursed Uzumaki gene to love ramen, Hiruzen said. It also doesn't help that Minato was a ramen addict himself. So throughout the night, all of the adults talked about Minato and how they expected Naruto to be just like him. Inoichi pointed out that the Uzumaki personality would always be the dominant thing in his life, making them shiver at the pranks he would perform in the future. They just hoped that they wouldn't be targets of any of them, though Hiashi said he wouldn't mind if he targeted the Hyuga elders for any of them. Later into the evening, Hiruzen received a message from a small green frog with violet markings. Ah, news from Jiraiya, Hiruzen announced. He said that he's convinced Tsunade to come back to Konoha. But it will take them about 7 months because they are on the far side of Yuki and the boats are in need of repairs. Tsunade-sensei is coming back? Hitomi asked, surprised. How did you convince her? Shikaku asked. I had Jiraiya tell her about Naruto and I decided to allow her idea of there being a medic nin on each team with her running the training program, Hiruzen said. When did you send Jiraiya after her? Choza asked. It was a month after Naruto was born, he had heard about the attack and raced all the way here from Iowa. He made it here in 2 days. But it takes at least 2 months to get from Iowa to Konoha. Inoichi yelled. Amabunta, was all that Hiruzen said. Everyone nodded in understanding. They knew that the Toad Boss could cover great distances easily, especially if motivated with sake. Later into the night, all the children had fallen asleep, so the adults bid each other goodbye and left to their respective homes. Hiruzen dropped Naruto off back in the orphanage and signaled his personal ambu guard. Hokage-sama, Cat and Tiger knelt down before their leader. Make sure that nothing happens to Naruto tonight, if anyone comes after him, bring him directly to me, Hiruzen commanded. Aye, Hokage-sama, both Anbu said before they jumped back into the shadows. Hiruzen let out a sigh as he adjusted the hat and began walking to the Sarutobi compound. His thoughts directed towards the future. Naruto Uzumaki didn't live a good life. He was ignored by most of the kids his age and hated by most of the adults. The only ones that didn't hate him were the Hokage and the Ichirakus who ran the ramen stand. He never understood what made him so unlikable to many people. He tried to be nice to others, but they still ignored him. He used to think that it was because of the strange stitches on his side, but then realized that it would be stupid to hate someone because of that. He learned that he would have to hide his sadness since he saw that people seemed to enjoy seeing him suffer. So he just gave everyone a big grin with closed eyes. He kept his eyes closed because he knew that no matter what he did, he couldn't hide the sadness that would show. Currently, Naruto was on his way back to the orphanage after spending the day at Ichiraku. He ate as much ramen as possible without spending all his money. He snuck back in through a hole in his room before covering it back up with a small rug. Naruto sighed as he climbed back into his rickety bed and closed his eyes. However, before he could fall asleep, he was yanked out of bed by someone. He looked up and saw that it was the caretaker that was dragging him by his arm. "Hey. Let me go." Naruto cried as he started to struggle, only to get punched in the head by the woman. "Shut up, you little monster." The nasty woman growled as she opened the door to the orphanage. She then proceeded to throw Naruto into the cold winter night. "You've overstayed your welcome here. Now leave and don't come back." With that, she slammed the door in Naruto's face. Naruto just sat there in shock, still processing what had just happened. When he realized that he was just kicked out of the orphanage, he stood up and began to walk into the dark streets of Konoha. The young Uzumaki kept to the alleyway since he knew that it would be a very bad idea to walk out in the open. He wanted to go to Ichiraku's but knew that they would be closed at this hour. He thought about going to the Hokage, however he decided that since he hasn't seen him in over a month that he was very busy. Naruto eventually found a small cardboard box that was under an awning. Naruto decided to make it his new home. So the young boy crawled inside and curled himself into a tiny ball before falling asleep. "Dusan, Kachan, please help me," were the last thought Naruto had before succumbing to a dreamless sleep. Hokage's office. "Curse this damned paperwork. Where does it keep coming from? How the hell did Minato get it done so fast?" Hiruzen thought as he went through each paper, trying to finish up quickly so he could try to go and see Naruto. He and the clan heads weren't able to make another meeting after the one where Naruto was only 1 year old. "Those damned council members on the civilian side are keeping me away from Naruto too much," Hiruzen growled as he finished what he considered the last paper for the evening. He sighed as he leaned back into his chair, thinking about how lonely Naruto might have been. He took out his crystal ball and used it to try and find Naruto. First he looked at his room in the orphanage, but it was surprisingly bare of everything. "What?" Hiruzen screamed as he shifted the view around the orphanage until he saw the caretaker throwing all of Naruto's stuff into a bonfire. Hiruzen growled as he desperately searched with his crystal ball for Naruto. The image kept changing to different places in Konoha, but couldn't find him. "This is not good," the Sandaime said as he summoned an Anbu. "Let me Hiashi Hyuga, Shikaku Nara, Choza Akimichi, and Inoichi Yamanaka," Hiruzen ordered. "Hi, Hokage-sama," the Anbu said as he vanished in a puff of smoke. Several minutes later, the aforementioned men walked through the door and saw that their leader was in distress. "You called for us, Hokage-sama?" Shikaku asked. "Hi, I wish it was on better terms, but I have some grave news," Hiruzen said as he sighed. "What is it?" Choza asked. "Naruto's gone missing," Hiruzen said. That shocked all of the clan heads to the core. "What happened?" Hiashi growled. He had already lost his brother earlier in the year and maybe the respect of his nephew. He wasn't going to lose the only connection with his best friend. "I suspect that he was kicked out of the orphanage tonight, but I haven't been able to locate him at all, and I've been looking through the crystal ball for the past half hour," Hiruzen said. "You know for a fact that Tsunade's going to thrash people for this when she gets back from that gambling fair," Choza said. "Maybe we could blame it on Orochimaru, that'll take care of a problem for us," Shikaku muttered. They all shared a chuckle at that before turning serious again. "Do you want us to go and try to find him?" Choza asked. Hiruzen shook his head and said, "You should just send out your most trusted clan members, or in Hiashi's case, most trusted branch members. It would look too suspicious if you were to go out and look yourselves." "Yeah, but we're going to leave Tsunade to you," Inoichi said as he and the other clan heads rushed out of the room before Hiruzen could protest. "I better start going over my will," the Sandaime thought as he reached into his desk and pulled out a scroll. Hiruzen Sarutobi, hereby leave my entire Icha Paradise collection to my son Asuma Sarutobi." 1 month later. Needless to say, Tsunade was royally pissed and the Hokage didn't die. Though he was admitted to the hospital for a week after Tsunade put some strain on his old heart and then making him completely better. Naruto was found at this time. Tsunade was on another search for him when she heard crying coming from an alleyway. Inside the alley was everyone's favorite blonde, besides me, crying in his sleep. Tsunade brought him to the Sandaime who, after managing to convince Naruto, got the young Uzumaki a small apartment. Tsunade wanted to adopt him, but that fell under the jurisdiction of the civilian council, who made it their life's mission to make Naruto's life a living hell. Currently, Naruto was in his bedroom asleep in his bed. His life had gotten somewhat better when the Hokage got him his apartment. It wasn't much, but it was more than he ever had. There were 3 rooms, his bedroom, kitchen, and bathroom, all of them being something that he appreciated when he started living here. Naruto woke up to the sunlight managing to find its way to his closed eyes. The young blonde rubbed his eyes and slowly got out of bed. He made his way to the bathroom where he proceeded to splash his face with cold water to effectively wake him up. He then went back into his bedroom and changed into his black shirt with a red spiral on it and some forest green shorts. I'm hungry," Naruto mumbled as he walked into the kitchen and pulled out a bowl, some cereal, and a gallon of milk. After having a filling breakfast, Naruto then went out to his balcony and took in the fresh air. "What a nice day. I think I'm gonna go and see how Gigi's doing," Naruto said as he ran back inside and put on his sandals before running out and locking the door behind him. Naruto then proceeded to run towards the Hokage tower, where he knew the Hokage would be, especially since it was almost 10 o'clock in the morning. "I wonder if I can get him teach me some jutsu today," Naruto wondered as he walked down the street. He continued on his way until he felt the hairs on the back of his neck standing on end. He started to look around and saw that the people were either ignoring his existence or glaring at him with pure hatred. Naruto just put on a smile and continued walking down the street. Deep down, those glares did affect him, but he had no other idea of how else to deal with it. However, today was going to change Naruto's life. As soon as he passed an alleyway, he was grabbed and pulled inside. Before he could scream out, he felt a pain on the back of his neck before everything went dark. Sometime later, Naruto groggily opened his eyes and saw that he was in a forested area tied to a wooden post. He looked around frantically and tried to get free of his bonds. "So you're awake," a voice said. Naruto turned his head to see a young man with black hair and dark eyes. He was dressed in a regular Chunin's attire and had nothing standing out. "What do you want?" Naruto asked, afraid of what this man wanted from him. "I want my revenge. You killed a lot of my friends, and I'm gonna avenge them," the Chunin said as he stalked forward, kunai in hand. But I didn't kill anybody," Naruto protested as he struggled harder. "Yes you did, you demon," the Chunin shouted, losing all of his composure. "You crushed hundreds of people with your paws and ate the remains. You almost destroyed the village and its people. I'm going to make sure that you never get the chance to do it again." "No. Please. I'm sorry," Naruto cried as he struggled harder, starting to get extremely desperate. The Chunin wore a malicious grin on his face as he raised his kunai in the air, ready to stab Naruto with it. Naruto closed his eyes tightly and felt a strange sensation in his right shoulder. He felt it rip apart painlessly and felt like a part of him was darting forward. He heard a gasp of pain and surprise before he opened his eyes and saw something that shocked him to the core. The Chunin was standing over him with the kunai raised, but that wasn't what shocked him. Coming out of the Chunin's chest were several crimson tendrils that were squiggling around. Naruto looked and saw that they were coming from where his shoulder was ripped off. The stitching was missing, and his shoulder was about a foot away from where the rest of his arm was. Even the Chunin gasped as the tendrils started to move within him. Naruto stared in shock as something wrapped in the tendrils came out of the Chunin's chest while it was still beating. The Chunin then fell to the floor dead, but Naruto didn't know that yet. The object was then pulled into Naruto where his arm came back to the rest of his body. "Ah!" Naruto screamed as the weight of what had happened finally settled into his mind. He let loose a chakra pulse that covered the whole village. Hokage's office. "You should really make some law about Jiraiya's peeping habits," a blonde-haired woman with a green coat and grey clothing said. She had her hair in 2 pigtails and had her arms crossed underneath her impressive bust. She gave an annoyed stare into the Sandaime's eyes with her honey-colored ones. Would love to Tsunade, but Jiraiya's books make a lot of money. Money that he uses to supply his spy network and himself. He also sends whatever he can spare to Konoha to help with our economy," Hiruzen said as he sighed. Tsunade huffed and said, "Why couldn't he have just stick to writing adventure stories? That first one was good even if it wasn't a bestseller." Before Hiruzen could reply, the chakra pulse reached his office. Both his and Tsunade's eyes widened as they recognized who the chakra belonged to. "Weasel, Mantis," the Sandaime called out. 2 Anbu in the aforementioned masks appeared before their Hokage and waited for his orders. "Follow us and make sure that there are no interruptions," Hiruzen ordered as he jumped out of his seat and leapt out the window, Tsunade following him in a heartbeat. Both Anbu jumped after them and tried to keep up. When they reached the source of the chakra pulse, Hiruzen's eyes widened and Tsunade gasped. For them was a crying Naruto, still tied up to the post, and a dead Chunin at his feet. "Mantis, make sure that we aren't interrupted." "Weasel, stay for a moment," the Sandaime ordered. Mantis vanished into the treetops and kept an watchful eye on the surrounding area. Hiruzen then shunted over to Naruto and cut the ropes holding him in place. Tsunade rushed over to him and hugged him tightly as he cried into her shoulder. Tsunade began whispering comforting words into his ear until he cried himself to sleep. "Weasel, do you know who this is?" Hiruzen asked as he turned over the body of the dead Chunin. Uchiha, not a member who stands out, but not weak either, Weasel said after taking a good look at the Chunin. Hiruzen sighed and called Tsunade over, Naruto still clutching to her in his sleep. "Can you see if he still has his heart?" Tsunade used her free hand to run a diagnostic jutsu on the body before pulling away. "No, his heart's not there. All of the veins connecting to it have been cleanly severed. Now I want you to check Naruto, I think that his Jiongu has activated," Hiruzen said. Tsunade nodded and started to check Naruto. After a couple minutes, she stopped the jutsu and faced the Sandaime. "The threads are moving erratically, trying to move the stolen heart to an area in Naruto's body where it will cause little discomfort," Tsunade explained. The Sandaime sighed and said, "Bring him back to my office. Weasel, you go and summon Hiashi Hyuga and Inoichi Yamanaka to my office." Mantis, the Anbu appeared before him, "If anyone asks about what happened, tell them that a new way to dispel game jutsu was being tested out before it went out. Speak nothing about what really happened here." The Anbu nodded before they disappeared again. The remaining two conscious people then leapt for the Hokage's office. After 5 minutes of waiting, Hiashi and Inoichi walked in with Weasel behind them. Weasel shut the door just as Hiruzen activated the privacy seals. Upon seeing Naruto clutching to Tsunade, Hiashi asked, "What happened?" Uchiha attempted to kill Naruto after abducting him, Hiruzen started before both clan heads let out a blast of kai. "Where is the bastard? He'll be brain dead when I'm through with him," Inoichi yelled. Hiruzen shook his head and said, "He's dead, Naruto's Jiongu activated and stole his still beating heart." Hiashi was confused, wouldn't his Sharingan warn him of any attack? "I suspect that he didn't have it activated, Daichi only used his Sharingan on foes who he considered worthy," Weasel explained. "A stroke of luck then," Hiashi said. "I suppose that Naruto is in shock because he saw the heart being stolen?" Inoichi asked. Hiruzen nodded and said, "Yes, I want you to enter his mind and try to help him get over it. He should never have to go through this at such a young age." Inoichi nodded and made a few hand seals before placing his hand on Naruto's forehead and closing his eyes. Naruto's mindscape. Inoichi opened his eyes and saw that he was standing in what appeared to be a dimly lit sewer. "This isn't as bad as I thought it would be," the Yamanaka head thought as he looked around. The appearance of Naruto's mind was a little disturbing to him though since it reflected how Naruto felt. His own mind was a nice and peaceful forest, and his daughter Ino's was a field of flowers. Naruto's mind only showed that he was lonely and depressed. Inoichi then decided to walk deeper into Naruto's mind in order to find him. After what felt like an eternity of walking, he reached a giant cage that had a piece of paper on it with the kanji for seal on it. "Is this what I think it is?" Inoichi thought as he peered inside. He was met with a giant red eye that lazily stared at him. You're not my jailer," a booming voice said as Inoichi realized what he was seeing. "Hey QB," Inoichi gasped as he saw the Bijuu fully illuminated behind the cage. The only thing that confused him was the fact that he only had 5 tails and what appeared to be the stump of a 6th. "I know what you're wondering, what happened to my tails?" "Right?" QB asked, to which Inoichi just dumbly nodded. "Remember the night I attacked? When your Hokage used that kinjutsu to save the boy, it drew upon my chakra when you and your allies ran out. Let me tell you, I was left with 2 tails worth of chakra." "Why are you being so civil with me?" Inoichi asked. QB snorted and said, "Because right now, you're the only one who can make sure that my jailer doesn't become a brain-dead idiot. If you want to find him, he's down that hallway." QB pointed a claw in the direction Naruto's consciousness had retreated to. "Thank you," Inoichi said as he began walking down the hallway. The QB said nothing as he watched the Yamanaka go to help his Jinchuriki. Inoichi walked down the wide hallway until he reached a door. Seeing that it was the only way to go, he opened the door and was blinded by a bright light. When he opened his eyes, he saw that he was at one of the training grounds. This must be where Naruto was taken to before, Inoichi mused as he walked and saw the events that happened when Naruto was abducted. Inoichi was then blinded by a bright light before he saw that the events were repeating themselves over and over again. Having enough of this, the Yamanaka head walked towards Naruto and cut the ropes holding him in place, stopping the memory. "Who are you?" Naruto asked, shivering in fear. Inoichi, seeing how frightened he was, knelt down in front of him and gave him a friendly smile. "My name is Inoichi Yamanaka, and I came into your mind to help you." "Me?" Naruto was confused, this stranger wanted to help him. Most strangers just hated him for no reason at all. "Yes, I understand that you are feeling very scared right now," Inoichi said. Ayake killed someone, Naruto said as he began shaking again. Inoichi sighed and said, yes you did, and you're never going to get over it. But you have to understand, if you didn't defend yourself, you would have been either seriously hurt or dead. Naruto stared at him in shock as he continued, people never get over their first kill, but you have to find a way to move on. People make hobbies to try and do it. A person I know is always late to any meeting, do you know why? Naruto shook his head. Because that's how he copes with his problems. I think I understand what you're saying, Naruto said. Inoichi smiled and said, good, now how about we go back to the real world? The Hokage is very worried about you. And I know you have some questions for him. Naruto nodded and Inoichi placed his hand on his forehead and both of them closed their eyes. Sandaime's office. Both of the male blondes opened their eyes to see that they were back in the Hokage's office. Naruto looked and saw Hiruzen speaking with a blonde woman that found him when he was alone, a person with wide eyes and a teenager in a mask. We're gone for 5 minutes and you forget about us already? Inoichi asked as he gained the attention of everyone in the room. Naruto-kun. Hiruzen shouted as he appeared next to his surrogate grandson. Hi Jiji. Naruto said as he gave the old man a hug. He then released the Hokage and saw that the blonde woman before she scooped him up in a bone-crushing hug. You're alright. The woman cried as she continued to smother Naruto. Breathing Naruto gasped out as his face turned blue. The woman realized that she was choking him and quickly let go. Naruto took a deep breath and got his breathing back under control. Hi pretty lady. I'm sorry I don't know your name, Naruto said. Tsunade chuckled and said, my name's Tsunade, don't you remember me? I was the one who found you when you were living in the alleyway. Naruto scrunched up his face and thought for a moment before saying, I think I remember you, you look familiar. Thank you for helping me get a home. Naruto, Hiruzen started, do you want to talk about what happened earlier? Hearing this, Naruto's face fell, yeah, what were those things coming out of my arm? Hiruzen sighed and said, to explain it clearly, I would have to talk about the day of your birth. We had just survived the QB attack and were recovering. We had discovered an enemy spy who was attempting to leave Konoha with the information that we were at our weakest. We had him on the run before he picked you up from one of my shinobi who was taking you to the hospital and used you as a hostage. We had confronted him and made a deal, you would be released and the ninja would go free. However, he had sliced you where your stitching was before dropping you and attempting to flee, but an Anbu was able to kill him. In order to save you, I was forced to use a kinjutsu that the Shodaime stole from Takigakure. They attempted to assassinate him. What kind of jutsu? Naruto asked. It's known as Yongu, it makes you the host of thread-like tendrils and gives you a wide range of powerful abilities, Hiruzen said. So when I become a ninja, I'll be a super ninja? Naruto asked, sparkles in his eyes. Everyone, except Weasel, chuckled at his statement. Hiruzen said, well, you'll be a strong ninja. Just think of yourself as someone who holds a unique Kekkei Genkai. So what can I do with Jin whatever it's called? Naruto asked. It's called Jiongu. Jiongu. And you can do whatever you want with the tendrils since they respond to either your will or they can act automatically when you're in danger, Hiruzen said. Wow. Can it do anything else? Naruto was bouncing on his feet now. The Sandaime sighed and said, there's one more thing that was listed in the scroll, but I don't know if you like it. Why not? Is it really bad? Naruto asked, getting a little scared now. No, it's just that you might be disturbed by this, Hiruzen said before explaining the last part of Jiongu. You can take the hearts of your enemies and steal all of their abilities and elemental nature. Like I did before? Naruto whispered. Yes, but this part of the ability has a positive effect for you, Hiruzen said. Naruto looked at him in confusion, what would be good about taking people's hearts? By stealing people's hearts, you can become like a cat, meaning that you will have multiple lives, Hiruzen explained. So I could still live even if I die? Naruto asked. Yes, but you will have to sacrifice a heart in the process. So you will want to be careful and try not to lose all your hearts, Hiruzen said. Naruto then looked at him and smiled, so can you teach me how to use it? Hiruzen smiled at Naruto's attitude and said, of course, that was what I wanted to do after I told you about this. And these people in the room are going to help you today. Naruto turned and saw Hiashi observing him before he jumped behind Tsunade and screamed, AAHH. It's another man with scary wide eyes. Another? Was the thought that went through the heads of most of the room's occupants. Naruto, when did you see someone with scary wide eyes? Hiruzen asked, sending an apologetic look at Hiashi who waved it off. It was when I went to the park last week, Naruto started, Ni-chan was sick, so Ichiraku's was closed for the day. I turned the corner and bumped into a man with those eyes. He demanded that I apologize and when I said that he was the one who bumped me, he poked me in the arm and I couldn't move it. I went to yell at him and his eyes grew big and he glared at me before I ran back home. Well, it seems like Naruto didn't have a good first meeting with the Hyuga clan, Inoichi said. Hiashi sighed and knelt down to Naruto's level. I hold no ill will against you, Uzumaki-san. I can understand that members of my clan can be difficult at times. I will take care of the issue when I find out who it was that attacked you. Naruto stared at Hiashi for a moment before saying, okay. But I have a question, how are you going to help me with my Jiongu? My clan possesses a Kekkei Genkai called the Byakugan. It allows us to see a person's chakra network, and it lets us see far away and through objects, Hiashi explained. What about him? Naruto asked, pointing at Weasel. You may remove your mask, the Sandaime said. Weasel reached up and took his mask off, revealing himself to the group. He had dark eyes like Daichi and had lines running down the bridge of his nose. This is Itachi Uchiha, a prodigy of the Uchiha clan, Hiruzen said. So he's going to use his Sharingan? Tsunade asked. What's that? Naruto asked as he listened. Hiruzen turned to the young blonde and said, the Sharingan, like the Byakugan, is a Kekkei Genkai that is associated with the eyes. It allows the user to see chakra, cast powerful genjutsus, and predict someone's movements. A more noticeable feature of the Sharingan is that it can copy any ninjutsu it sees, as long as it isn't associated with anyone else's Kekkei Genkai. That sounds almost as cool as Jiongu, Naruto said. Almost. Itachi raised an eyebrow at this. Well, if I took the heart of someone who had jutsu that you can't copy, that would make me better than you, right? Naruto asked. Everyone was shocked, he had figured out the one thing that he could do that the Sharingan couldn't. Itachi chuckled and said, yes, that would make you better than me. Now let's get started. Naruto, come here, Hiruzen said, beckoning Naruto to him. Naruto jogged over and stood before the Hokage. First, we're going to have you access your chakra, Hiruzen started as Hiashi and Itachi activated their Byakugan Sharingan to observe the blonde Jinchuriki. How do I do that? Naruto asked. Hiruzen thought of the best way to word it for the boy. Do you feel a warm feeling in your gut? Naruto nodded. You need to try to grab that feeling and pull it to the surface. Try to make it flow through you. It becomes easier if you put your hands into this seal. He showed Naruto the ram seal. After correcting his mistakes in making the seal, Naruto attempted to draw out his chakra. He felt that warm feeling like the Hokage said and tried to pull it to the surface. The problem was that because he was a Jinchuriki, he had far more chakra than a normal person his age, so it was like pulling a boulder out of a hole meant for a pebble. I'm out already. Naruto growled as he pulled harder. Surprisingly, that thought somehow made Naruto able to drag his chakra to the surface. When he finally got it out, Hiashi and Itachi had to turn off their dijutsu because they weren't expecting there to be so much chakra. What's wrong? Tsunade asked as she saw both males rub their eyes. Ugh, I wasn't expecting so much chakra. It merely disoriented me for a moment, Hiashi said. As am I, Itachi said as he blinked rapidly to get the spots out of his vision. Sorry. Naruto said, uncertain of what to do. There's no need for apologies, Naruto-san, Itachi said. Indeed, we just didn't expect you to have so much chakra, Hiashi put his 2 cents in. Is that a good thing? Naruto asked. It's a very good thing, a ninja who has more chakra is able to perform more jutsu, maybe more powerful ones, Hiruzen said. Ha! I knew I was awesome. Naruto cheered. It's Kushina with Minato's looks were the thoughts of everyone except Itachi. Once Naruto calmed down, Hiruzen then tried to get him to do the next lesson. Now that you've got access to your chakra, we should try to get you to control your Jiongu to some degree, Hiruzen said. But I don't think that it would be a good idea to try it here. Why not? I'm ready to go. Naruto declared. Hiruzen chuckled at the blonde's enthusiasm and said, that's why we have training grounds. Tsunade, can you take over trying to get his Jiongu activated? I'm afraid I can't since I'm behind on my work. Hiruzen glared at the pile of paperwork that was mocking him with its height. Tsunade sighed and said, alright sensei, I'll tell you about our progress later. You men follow me to training ground 27. She then grabbed Naruto's shoulder and vanished in a shunshin. The rest of them followed, leaving Hiruzen alone. He then pulled out a little orange book and flipped it to a certain page before giggling pervertedly. Okanoko-chan, you're so dirty. Training ground 27. Tsunade appeared in a puff of smoke with a stumbling Naruto. Oh, I think I'm gonna be sick herb. Naruto ran over to a bush where he proceeded to introduce the shrub to his eaten breakfast. Tsunade sweat dropped and thought, maybe I should have just jumped here instead. You alright Gaki? Yeah, that was just uncomfortable, Naruto said as he leaned on a tree for support. I remember when Jiraiya-sensei taught us the shunshin. Minato was the only one who was able to keep his lunch down the longest, Hiashi said as he and the other appeared behind Tsunade. So how am I gonna do this? Naruto said as he recovered. Well, Tsunade started as she pulled out a small scroll, opened it, and began to read from it. First you have to gain control of the tendrils that are in your body. So just close your eyes and try to feel them as they move throughout you. Naruto did as instructed, and after a few minutes of concentrating, he opened his eyes and voiced his frustrations. I can't feel anything. It's just not there, Naruto complained. Try fluctuating your chakra, Itachi said as he activated his Sharingan. Naruto just gave him a funny look, not understanding what he wanted him to do. Itachi, realizing his mistake, said, what I want you to do is make your chakra move around wildly to try and get a reaction out of the Jiongu. Naruto nodded his head and closed his eyes. This time he made his chakra move around in an erratic manner before he felt it start to move to his right forearm. His arm then felt a little numb and heard a few gasps. He opened his eyes to see that several tendrils were moving in and out of his forearm without leaving any sort of mark that they had emerged when they went back in. Awesome. Naruto shouted as he saw his progress. I didn't expect him to do it so quickly, Inoichi said. He's just like Minato, able to get the gist of any technique in only a few tries, Hiashi thought as he watched Naruto make his tendrils dance through the air, making shapes or animals. I think I've got the hang of this, Naruto said. Well, you can use what sensei wrote down as the basic control, Tsunade said as she read the scroll. When you have a better control over it and are a little older, you can start on some of the complicated stuff. Oh, I want to work on it now, Naruto whined. Yet, he's got Kushina's attitude. Always wanting to do the hard stuff right away, Hiashi thought, silently chuckling to himself. I think that you've done enough work for today, now how about I treat you to some ramen? Tsunade said the magic words. Ramen? Naruto yelled as he clung to Tsunade's leg. To Ichiraku's. Alright. Just get off. Tsunade yelled. Naruto sighed as he leaned against the tree he was using as a target. The bark was littered with slash marks and punctures, like a bunch of other trees that were in the area. He was working hard mastering his Jiongu and making new ways to fight with it. He had made a bunch of new attacks to use, especially with his new ability. He remembered when the Hokage helped him learn this new part of the Jiongu. Flashback 3 months ago. Ah, Naruto-kun, I was expecting you, Hiruzen said as he saw the blonde walk inside. You were? Naruto asked as he entered. Hiruzen smiled and said, yes, I was wondering if you would like to learn another ability of the Jiongu. Don't you know me by now, Jiji? Of course I want to learn a new ability. Naruto shouted as he practically bounced off the walls. Hiruzen chuckled and said, excellent, we'll leave for my personal training area in a few minutes. Why? Why don't we just go now? Naruto asked. I've been signing a lot of papers today and my hands are a little numb. I would like to have some feeling in them before we start training, Hiruzen said as he glared at the pile of finished paperwork. Okay, there was something I had to tell you anyway, Naruto said as he took a seat. What is it? Hiruzen asked. Naruto pulled back the sleeve of his right arm and showed the Sandaime that there was stitching in the middle of his forearm. What happened? Hiruzen asked, thinking that Naruto was attacked. Naruto rubbed the back of his head and explained, well, I was thinking about the abilities of my Jiongu and remembered that I could extend my limbs at the stitching. So I was thinking that it would be really cool if I could shoot my arm out at someone. When I tried to do it with my original stitching, it felt really uncomfortable. But then I felt my arm getting tingly and saw that this was happening. Incredible, I thought that you had to be cut for the process to happen, Hiruzen said. Can you make it go back to normal? I mean, can you make that arm normally attached without the stitching? Yeah, but it takes a lot of focus and makes me really tired when I do that, so I decided to leave it there and only take it away when I'm on vacation or something, Naruto said. It's probably his Uzumaki genes or the QB, the Sandaime thought. The scroll didn't say anything about this sort of thing. Naruto, Hiruzen began, you never cease to amaze me. Let's go, this technique is something that I know you're gonna love. Hiruzen then led Naruto to the Hokage's personal training grounds, which was in a cave behind the tower underneath the Hokage monument. There was a waterfall inside the cave and an area filled with weaponry. Wow. Naruto shouted as he saw the training field. Indeed it is very impressive, Hiruzen said. The Shodaime and Nidame created this training field for all Hokages and their personal apprentices to use. Does this mean that the Yondaime trained here? Naruto asked. The Yondaime was his idol, so he was excited to be in an area where the Yondaime trained. Hiruzen went to answer, but found himself at a loss for words. Now that I think about it, the Yondaime only trained here twice. Rumor was it that he had a secret training ground, but nobody knows where it is. Now, before we start on your Jiongu, I'm going to teach you a D-rank Kaiten jutsu, Hiruzen said. You're going to teach me a jutsu, Naruto cried in disbelief. Yes, because you're going to need at least one jutsu for this new ability of the Jiongu, Hiruzen explained. Now this jutsu isn't really that big of an attack, but it's the only one I've got that you probably won't hurt yourself with. But if you do hurt yourself, it won't be too bad. So what's the jutsu? Naruto asked, paying close attention. Hiruzen then started to explain the jutsu. The hand seals are Yuma, Inu, and Tora. He made the hand seals and took a deep breath before shouting, Kaiten. Fire bullet jutsu. He shot out a small fireball the size of a tennis ball that impacted against the waterfall, making it steam a little. Wow. Naruto shouted in amazement. In order to do this jutsu correctly, you have to gather chakra in your lungs and mold it into the shape of the fire bullet. Then you take a deep breath and exhale the air after it mixes with your chakra. When you are exhaling, you have to change your chakra into fire, Hiruzen explained. Okay. Naruto cried as he made the hand seals and took in a deep breath. After mixing his chakra, he exhaled while shouting, Kaiten. Fire bullet jutsu. But instead of a fireball coming out, he coughed out a cloud of smoke. Hiruzen just laughed as Naruto ran over to the small lake and began to take big gulps of water. After about 27 tries, Naruto was able to perform the jutsu correctly. The Sandaime made him do it several more times so he could get used to the chakra flow. Now we're going to make an advancement with your Jiongu, Hiruzen said as he pulled out a sealing scroll. So what am I gonna learn? Naruto asked. Hiruzen chuckled at his enthusiasm and said, you're going to use the Jiongu to make your hearts fight for you. Huh? Naruto didn't understand what he was saying. The Sandaime sighed and said, you can make the threads come out and make a body for the heart you stole to fight alongside you. I still don't get it, Naruto said as he scratched the side of his head. Hiruzen then tried to explain it though another approach, pull off your arm and have a bunch of threads come out. Naruto did as instructed and a fair amount of threads came out and formed a sphere the size of the hat Hiruzen was wearing. Now, can you feel your second heart? Naruto nodded. Try to move it into that sphere. Naruto closed his eyes and concentrated. He felt the heart within his body and willed the threads to move it. He could feel the heart as it went up his arm and towards where his arm detached. Naruto opened his eyes and saw the heart, still covered in crimson threads, as it was absorbed by the sphere. The sphere then shuddered as he began to detach from Naruto and it fell to the floor in a quivering mess. Did I do something wrong? Naruto asked as he started to worry. No, what you need to do now is place your hand on the threads and make the heart go into a mask after I place it on the threads, I'll explain afterwards, Hiruzen said. Naruto nodded and waited for the Hokage to pull out the mask. The Sandaime opened the scroll and pushed some chakra into it, making a mask pop out. It was a fox mask with red markings on it. The mask also had a movable jaw THT was filled with sharp teeth. Hiruzen placed the mask on the massive threads and Naruto placed his hand next to it. Naruto directed the heart to go into the mask and removed his hand once he felt that the process was done. Now you should have the threads take the shape of whatever animal you want, Hiruzen said. Though, you should have it take the shape of a fox, since that's the mask we put on it. Naruto nodded again and focused. The threads began to squirm around before they started to take shape. After a few moments, standing before them was a mass of crimson threads in the shape of a nine-tailed fox. It had rabbit-like ears that were curved and the fox mask that was placed on it moments before. Wow. I didn't know I could do that. Naruto exclaimed as he watched the construct as it stood there like a statue. It's a special ability that the Jiongu is capable of, Hiruzen began. You can animate the threads that your stolen hearts reside in, so they can assist you in battle. However, it can only use the element of the heart that is inside it. This just makes me even more awesome. Naruto shouted as he ran around his new construct. Though I have to ask, why make it look like the QB? Hiruzen asked, getting a little nervous. Simple, I want it to look scary. That way my enemies will be too busy being afraid and I'll be able to beat them up. Naruto told him. Hiruzen sighed, he should have known that that was the reason. Then flashback. Naruto had learned to perform his jutsu though it was very hard to do. He failed at it many times until he was able to get the jutsu to work correctly. He currently had the mask stitched to his mask by a long line that went across the upper portion of his back towards his right shoulder. Of course, he was forced to go through a small wardrobe change because of his new additions. Thankfully, Hiruzen had his personal tailor make the clothes for the blonde. He was now wearing a specially made vest that left his back bare so his mask creature could get out faster. It was black with a red swirl on his chest and dark orange flames on the bottom of the vest. To cover up his mask and stitching, he wore a black trench coat that had a belt tied at the waist. He was wearing black ninja pants with ambu shin guards attached to them. On his feet were his blue sandals. Naruto decided to take a walk through the forest and enjoy the relaxing breeze. As Naruto walked through the forest he could see the shapes of some people that were in the distance. As he crept closer, he could hear what they were saying. So you're a member of the Hyuga clan? A male voice said. Naruto got closer and saw 3 boys about 2 years older than him surrounding a little girl that was his age. He couldn't get a good view of her, but she appeared to have dark blue hair and was dressed in some formal robes. "Yes, I am," a soft timid voice, probably the girl's, replied. "Oh, do you gonna think that we're not worthy of your attention?" a second male asked. "And no, I didn't say that," the girl trailed off. "Hey guys, let's show her that we're better than her stuck-up clan," the first male's voice suggested. "Yeah." The other 2 agreed. The next thing Naruto knew, they were pushing the small girl around. "Stop it," the girl cried. But alas, her pleas fell on deaf ears. "That's enough," Naruto said as he stepped into the clearing. The boy stopped harassing the girl and let her fall to the floor. She looked up to see her savior, but Naruto wasn't looking at her yet. He would do so when he was sure that these bullies were going to leave. "Hey, this is the kid my parents said to stay away from," the third bully said. "Yeah, mine said that he was a demon in disguise," the first one whispered. "Demon? But he looks like a regular person," the girl thought as she stared at Naruto. "If you have to pick on someone younger than you, then you are really pathetic," Naruto said. This angered the boys, and the leader stepped forward. "Come on guys, there's one of him and 3 of us, we can take him." "Yeah. You're right." The 3 of them then charged Naruto. Naruto sighed and said, "Just because there's more of you. It doesn't mean that you'll win." Then he got to work cleaning up the garbage. He grabbed a fist of the first bully that came flying towards him and threw him over his shoulder. He sidestepped the second bully and tripped him before he ducked under the third one's punch and elbowed him in the gut, making him double over in pain. "You're outclassed, get out of here," Naruto said as he glared at them. "If I see you bullying anyone else again, then we're going to have problems." With that, the 3 bullies scrambled to their feet and ran away. Naruto then turned to the girl to see her watching him in awe. "You okay?" Naruto asked as the cold look faded from his eyes to be replaced with a caring blue. Now that he was sure that the bullies had left, he was able to get a good look at her. She was around his age with blue hair that was in a Harem-style cut that had 2 bangs framing her face. Her eyes were an attractive color of lavender that reminded Naruto of the moon. "Yes." The girl squeaked as she got out of her stupor, blushing red. Naruto just raised an eyebrow at her antics before shaking his head and extending a hand. "Let me help you up," Naruto said. "Oh. Thank you," the girl said as she took his hand as he gently pulled her up. She dusted off her robes before bowing to Naruto. Thank you for saving me," she said. Naruto just waved her off and said, "It's no problem, I couldn't just let them push around someone. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, what's your name?" "My name is Hinata. Hi Hyuga," Hinata said. "Hyuga? Where have I heard that name before?" Naruto wondered. "It's one of the most prestigious clans in Konoha," Hinata said. "Now I remember. I met the Hiashi guy in Jiji's office last year." Naruto realized. "You met Kusama?" Hinata asked. "That was your dad. Wow, small world," Naruto said. I guess so," Hinata said. "Hey," Naruto began, "do you want to be my friend?" "Yes, I would love to be your friend Naruto-san," Hinata said with a small smile and blush. "Don't call me san, it makes me feel old," Naruto said. Hinata looked down and said, "I'm so sorry. Would you like me to call you Naruto-kun?" "Yeah. That sounds better," Naruto said with a grin. "Hinata-sama. Get away from him." Naruto turned around just in time to get an open palm slap to the stomach, sending him flying. When he opened his eyes, he saw that it was a young man with brown hair spiked backwards. He was wearing a black kimono and had the bulging eyes of the Byakugan. Seeing that he was out of his league, Naruto leapt to his feet and ran away. "Ko-san. Why you do that? He helped me when some bullies were bothering me," Hinata cried. "Don't be fooled by its lies, Hinata-sama. That thing was trying to let you lower your guard so it could harm you," Ko said as he began to pull the young girl away, despite her protests. Hyuga compound. As soon as Hinata was brought home, she ran to the garden where she knew her mother would be. Her mother would know what to do, she was really smart about things like this. Inside the Hyuga garden, Hitomi was sitting on a bench rubbing her slightly bulged stomach, she was already 3 months pregnant with her second child. "Ha-chan." Hinata cried as she ran towards her mother. "Hinata-chan." Hitomi was surprised to see her daughter in such a state. The young girl leapt into her mother's lap and clung to her robes tightly. "What's wrong, my dear?" "IW was Kosan, he had attacked a boy who has saved me from some bullies," Hinata said as she clung even tighter. "Ko did what?" Hitomi screamed. Hiashi came running out a minute later, having heard his wife scream. "What happened?" Hiashi huffed. "Our wonderful bodyguard for Hinata decided to save her from a harmless boy that had saved her from some ruffians," Hitomi said. "Hinata, can you tell us about what happened?" Hiashi asked. So Hinata told her the story of how she was rescued from some bullies by Naruto, only for him to be attacked by Ko when they were talking. Hiashi, having heard enough, got up and went to search for Ko. After a branch member brought Ko to his office, Hiashi looked him straight in the eye. "Good evening Ko," Hiashi greeted. "Good evening Hiashi-sama," Ko greeted back. "How was your walk through the village with Hinata today?" the Hyuga had asked. "It was fine, I kept her away from all trouble," Ko told him. Hiashi quirked an eyebrow and said, "Really? Because I heard a different story." He then sent Ko a harsh glare and said, "She said that you both got separated and told me how she was assaulted by some ruffians when she was in the forest. And I defended her from the threat," Ko said. "Did you now?" Hiashi asked in a sarcastic tone. "She told me that she was rescued from 3 boys 2 years older than her by a young boy. A young boy that you assaulted without warning." "There wasn't a group there, just a boy that was harassing her," Ko said, spitting out the word boy like it was a poison. Hiashi just sent him a glare and said, "So I should just disregard what my daughter told me and believe you instead, correct?" "That thing probably made an illusion to try and gain her trust before it," Ko said. "Enough." Hiashi yelled, "I will not sit here and let you lie to my face." "But I am not lying Hiashi-sama," Ko protested. "I have met the Uzumaki boy and have seen that he is a well-mannered boy when he meets his superiors, unless they allow him to do otherwise," Hiashi said. "I've seen that he has pure intentions for the village, a village that spits on the sacrifice the Sandaime made." Before Ko could say anything, Hiashi said to him, "Tomorrow you will accompany me, my wife, and Hinata to Uzumaki-san's apartment where you will apologize for your behavior against him. Maybe if you spend some time with him you will see how wrong the village is when they speak about him." But that, Hiashi dismissed Ko. The younger Hyuga could only walk out of his office in mild shock. He was going to spend tomorrow with that thing. Tomorrow Naruto's apartment. Naruto sat at his table as he finished making his breakfast. A bowl of ninja flakes and a nice cold glass of fresh milk that he bought from the store. He was too lazy to change into his regular clothes right away, so he just sat there in his pajamas. I wonder if I'll see that Hinata girl again, Naruto thought as he ate another spoonful of cereal. He was shaken out of his thoughts by the sound of someone knocking at the door, making him narrow his eyes in suspicion. Only 3 people knew where he lived. The Hokage, Tsunade, and her apprentice Shizune, and they never visited him in the morning. So he slowly crept towards the door and had his threads out and formed them into a blade. "Who is it?" Naruto asked. He wanted to make sure if it was someone he knew. "Naruto-kun. It's me, Hinata," he heard. Naruto took a small peek outside through his door and saw that it was indeed the Hyuga girl from yesterday. But behind her were 3 people. He recognized Hiashi and the Hyuga that he had the pleasure of meeting yesterday, but he didn't know who the woman was. Naruto thought that it was Hinata's mother since she had the same hair color as the girl. "Give me a minute," Naruto called out as he rushed back towards his room and changed his clothes in record time. After adjusting his trench coat, he went back to the front and opened the door. "Oh, hello again Hinata-chan, Hiashi-sama, Hyuga team, ma'am," Naruto greeted with a smile. Ko was fuming at his new title, but it appeared that nobody else was bothered by it. "You deserve it," Hitomi thought while grinning internally. "Come on in, I was just about to have breakfast," Naruto said as he walked back inside, his guests following him in, though Ko was a bit reluctant until Hiashi sent him a look. "Do you guys want anything?" "All I've got is ninja flakes and ramen," Naruto asked as he walked towards his refrigerator. "No thank you Naruto-san, we've already had breakfast," Hitomi said. "Oh, okay," Naruto said as he turned around and sat in his chair. "So why did you come over?" "I mean, I'm not the type of person to get so many visitors, especially in the morning." "Ko here has something that he would like to say to you," Hiashi said as he gave Ko a look that said, "Be nice or we'll have problems." Ko took a deep breath, he couldn't believe that he was going to do this. "I am sorry for attacking you yesterday Uzumaki-san, I thought that you were attacking Hinata-sama, not helping her." Naruto shook his head and said, "It's fine, you were just doing your job like I was when I saw her being bothered by those jerks." "And what would your job be?" Hitomi asked. "If I'm gonna be Hokage one day, I have to make sure that there's no more bullying." "It's not a nice thing to do, Dadabeo," Naruto said. "You want to be Hokage?" Hinata asked. "Yeah. The Hokage is the strongest person in the village, so that's a place for me," Naruto told her. Hiashi was in deep thought for a moment before suggesting, "Hinata, why don't you and Naruto go and walk through the village for the day?" "Really Too-sama?" Hinata asked, shocked that he would allow this. Hiashi nodded and said, "You should take the time to get to know your new friend." "Thank you Too-sama." Hinata stammered out as she went to the front to put her sandals on. Naruto stared at Hiashi for a while before asking, "Can you lock the door on your way out?" "Of course," Hiashi said. "Okay," Naruto said as he went to put his sandals on. He then rushed back into his room and placed Gamachan in his back pocket before he left with Hinata. Ko, Hiashi started, in order for you to get a better understanding of Naruto, you will tail them and will not interfere with anything unless they are being harmed by civilians or drunken shinobi. Ko looked appalled for a moment before nodding and rushing after the two children. Are you sure that's a good idea, Hiashi-kun? Hitomi asked. It's the best one I can think of at the moment, Hiashi said. Training ground 27. Naruto had led the Hyuga heirs towards his personal training grounds. Ko had followed them and was wondering what Naruto was up to. Naruto-kun, why are we here? Hinata asked. This is my personal training grounds, Naruto stated as he waved his arms out. Why we're here is because I want to show you something. What is it? Hinata asked. Can you keep it a secret? Naruto asked. Yes, I can, Hinata said. I'm gonna show you my special jutsu, it's something that I got after I was born, Naruto explained. What kind of jutsu? Hinata asked. The kinjutsu. Naruto then went and told her the same story the Sandaime told him when he first discovered the Jiongu. By the time he was finished, Hinata was at tears and hugged him saying that nobody had to go through that. Can I see it? Hinata asked. Sure. Naruto replied as he pulled back the sleeve of his right arm and revealed his detachable limb. He then pulled off his forearm and Hinata watched in amazement as the crimson threads came out and stayed connected to the limb. Hinata then reached out and took a small amount of threads into her hands. It's so soft, like silk, Hinata said in amazement as she continued to observe the material. She then began to giggle as a stray thread danced past her ear, lightly grazing it. What's up? Naruto asked as he heard her giggle. Hinata blushed for a moment before saying, nothing, it just tickled me a little. Naruto then had a playful grin on his face as he thought of something fun to do. So you're ticklish, huh? Yes, I am terribly ticklish, Hinata said, not seeing his grin. Why do you ask? Oh, no reason, just thought that you might enjoy this. Naruto shouted as he sent his tendrils towards the smaller girl as they began running across her skin. Hinata's eyes went wide before she burst out laughing. Nahaharuto ha ho ho. Ha ha ha. Please. It's too amusing. From what I can tell, you're enjoying this. Naruto said as he took off her sandals and began to scribble his fingers over his feet, making her voice go up another octave. Ahahahaha. Plahaha ceased to hahahab. I can't tahahakid anymore. Hinata laughed as she flailed her arms and legs in an attempt to get free. Thinking that she had enough, Naruto let her go and retracted his tendrils. Hinata laid there on the floor taking deep breaths, her face flushed a bright pink. So, did you have fun? Naruto asked. Fun? Hinata asked. Yeah, you looked like you needed to smile a bit more, so I discovered the perfect way to get you to do so, Naruto said as he gave her a fox-like grin. Hinata looked at him before giving him a small smile. Yes, I had a little fun. Naruto grinned and said, good, because I have another part of my Jiongu that I want to show you. What is it? Hinata asked. Naruto said nothing as he undid the belt that was tied around his trench coat and shrugged it off, revealing the mask that was stitched to his back. Hinata put her hands to her mouth and gasped in shock. Don't worry, this is part of it, Naruto then explained to her how he was able to use the hearts to make creatures to assist him in battle. Let me show you. Naruto then put his hands in the Taurus seal and said, Jiongu. Activate. The part on his back with the mask began to pulse before the stitching came undone, and the mask leapt off with a mass of crimson tendrils attached to it. Once it hit the ground it took the shape of a nine-tailed fox. That's amazing, Hinata said as she watched the fox stand there. Yeah. I can also make it use any fire jutsu I know, Naruto said. Why only a fire jutsu? Hinata asked. Because that's the elemental affinity this heart has, Naruto told her. Naruto then looked at the sky and saw that was around noon. That meant that it was lunchtime, of course, it also didn't help that his stomach decided to voice its own opinion, making a large growling noise. Naruto blushed in embarrassment as Hinata giggled at him. Does someone want to laugh some more? Naruto asked with a mischievous grin as he waved his tendrils through the air. Hinata giggled a little as she stepped back. That's not necessary, Hinata said. Naruto chuckled and said, let's go and get some lunch, do you like ramen? I haven't had it before, Hinata said as she poked her fingers together. When she didn't hear Naruto say anything, she looked up at him to see that he had a shocked look on his face. You've never had ramen? Naruto asked. Hinata just meekly nodded and Naruto let out a scream of horror before he took her hand into his own and began racing towards Ichiraku's. After he got his fire heart back into his body. Beep. Was all Hinata could say as she was forced to follow Naruto into the village. Ko was silently following them while trying to prevent himself from rushing the boy. After racing into the village, Naruto stopped in front of the ramen stand and yelled inside. Old man Ichiraku. We've got an emergency. Naruto yelled. Uchiha ran out to see Naruto with a panting Hinata next to him. What is it? Did the Hokage limit you to only eating one bowl? Tucci asked in horror. Worse. Naruto cried. She has never had ramen in her life. Tucci looked at Hinata with some horror written on his face. We need a bowl of miso ramen now. With that, he rushed back into the kitchen leaving the two kids alone at the booth. After 3 minutes of waiting, Tucci brought out a steaming bowl of ramen and placed it in front of Hinata. She picked up her chopsticks and took a small amount of the noodles into her mouth and swallowed. Her eyes lit up and she began to eat more of them at a faster pace. This is delicious. Hinata exclaimed softly. Naruto let out a sigh of relief and said, thank Kami, you were suffering from a severe case of ramen deprivation. I don't think that's a real thing, Hinata said. Of course it is. Nobody can survive without ramen. Naruto said. But I haven't eaten our ramen and I am fine, Hinata pointed out. Naruto put on a thinking expression and said, but you can't live without a delicious food like ramen. Cinnamon buns are delicious to me, Hinata said. Everyone has weird tastes, Naruto said as he went back to devouring 2 bowls at once. After they had lunch, Naruto decided to take Hinata back home. She had to lead the way of course, since he had no idea where she lived. Upon reaching the Hyuga compound, the guards kept an eye on Naruto while he and Hinata said goodbye. Hey Hinata, Naruto began, are you going to join the academy next year? Yes, I am going to train to become a ninja, the young Hyuga said. Great. Maybe we'll be in the same class, Naruto said. I would like that very much, Hinata said as she poked her fingers together. Well, see you around Hinata. Naruto said. The young Hyuga walked back into her compound and Naruto walked back to his apartment. Ko leapt down from the trees with a thoughtful expression on his face. He entered Hiyashi's study where the man was waiting for him. I trust that there were no problems. Hiashi asked. Ko shook his head and said, no Hiashi-sama, Hinata-sama seemed to enjoy her time with Uzumaki-san. Hiashi nodded and asked, have you seen how the rumors about Naruto-san aren't true? Yes, I even saw that he has a kinjutsu of his own, Ko said. You must never speak about it until Naruto-san makes it known to others, Hiashi said. There are people in this village who would do anything to get their hands on him if they knew. I understand Hiashi-sama, Ko said. The 6-year-old Naruto jumped out of bed earlier than usual with a big smile on his face. And why wouldn't he? Today was the day he starts attending the academy. A place where he could meet people his age, hopefully they wouldn't glare at him like all the adults would. While he was still friends with Hinata, he wanted to make more friends and expand his social life. Naruto inhaled his breakfast and put on his clothes in record time. He made extra sure that his trench coat would hide all his stitches so nobody would ask questions. Before he walked out the door, he remembered the conversation he had with the Hokage last week. Flashback Sandaime's office. You wanted to see me, Jiji? Naruto asked as he sat down in the chair across from Hiruzen. Yes, Naruto-kun, Hiruzen confirmed. You're starting the academy next week, right? Yeah. And I'm gonna be the best ninja there. Naruto proclaimed. Hiruzen sighed and said, that's exactly what I wanted to talk to you about. What's up? Naruto asked. I don't want you to be the best ninja in the academy, Hiruzen bluntly said. As predicted, Naruto exploded. What? Why shouldn't I be the best? I want everyone to know how awesome I really am. Hiruzen sighed and told him, that's the thing, if everyone knew how tough you really were, then you wouldn't be a real ninja. Naruto was surprised, what are you talking about? A real ninja hides his skills from his enemies, Hiruzen explained. A real ninja is deceptive and sneaky, always hiding in the shadows while hunting his prey. If you were to show everyone your abilities, then they might find ways to counter it. Naruto thought it over for a moment before saying, so you want me to be weak so people will underestimate me? Hiruzen shook his head and said, I didn't say that you should be the weak one. You should just be an average student. That way you won't be weak and you won't attract attention to yourself. Okay Jiji. I'll make you proud. Naruto said as he got up and left the room. Besides, if you showed everyone your abilities, I wouldn't be able to protect you. Not until you become a ninja, Hiruzen thought as he lit his pipe for a smoke. Flashback end. Naruto shook his head and got back to reality as he looked at the clock. He saw that he had a little over an hour to get there. So he tightened the belt on his trench coat and grabbed his aviator goggles. They were a gift from Hinata as a thank you for saving her from the bullies all those months ago. After locking his front door, Naruto jumped down his stairs and leapt into the street before running towards the academy. As he ran, he could see the glares and looks of disgust on the civilians' faces. He just shrugged them off and continued running. After a half hour of running through the streets, Naruto arrived at the main gate of the academy. He looked up in awe of the large building, the place where he would learn to become a shinobi. He could feel his threads reacting to his excitement with all their wiggling. He calmed down and walked into the building, but couldn't keep the grin off of his face. Naruto walked to the front desk where a young woman was reading a magazine. "Hi. Can you tell me where the classroom for the new students is?" Naruto asked. "Down the hall and to your left, it's room 15, the woman said without looking up from her magazine. Naruto said thanks and jogged down the hallways. He arrived at the room and opened the door before walking inside. The room was fairly simple, there was a teacher's desk in the front, a blackboard behind it. The desks were arranged in a rising position where the teacher could see all the students. There were children his age inside the room already sitting down and chatting with each other. 8 of them stood out to him however. 3 girls and 5 boys. The first boy was sitting towards the back of the was wearing a grey coat with a color that hid everything under the black shades he wore. He had spiky brown hair like his own. Naruto thought he spied a small beetle crawling across his hand, but shook it off. The next boy was a round boy with a bag of chips in his hands. He was wearing a green jacket with spiral markings on his cheeks. He had spiky brown hair on his head. The third boy was sleeping on his desk. As far as Naruto could see, he had his hair styled like a pineapple. He was wearing a grey shirt with a clan marking on it. Naruto thought that he was just tired from not getting enough sleep. After all, Naruto woke up every 3 hours because of his excitement last night. The fourth boy was wearing a grey hoodie with the hood down, revealing his shaggy brown hair. He had slitted pupils and red fang-like markings on his cheeks. Sitting on his head was a small white puppy. The final boy was sitting in the corner of the room with a bored expression on his face. He was wearing a blue shirt with a crest on the back of it that looked like a fan. He had hair that was spiked in the appearance of a duck's butt. Naruto had to stifle a laugh as he thought about that. Finally he looked at the girls that stood out. The first one was a pink-haired girl with a red bow in her hair. She was wearing a red shirt and black shorts and was staring dreamily at the boy with the duck butt hair. The second girl was on with platinum blonde hair. She was wearing a light purple shirt and pants that reached her knees and had a green clip in her hair. Naruto caught her staring at the girl with pink hair with a sign of depression before she turned back and staring at the same boy, but not as longingly as the first girl. The third girl was someone Naruto instantly recognized, it was Hinata. Naruto smiled as he jumped up the steps to his friend. Seeing that she was spaced out, Naruto poked her in the side to get her attention. Hinata was thinking about whether or not Naruto would be in her class. She hoped that he would. He was her only friend that was her own age after all. She was jolted out of her thoughts by a poke to her side. She practically jumped out of her seat while biting her lip to hold in her bubbling giggles. She turned her head and saw the person she was thinking about. "Naruto-kun." Hinata softly cried. "Hi Hinata-chan." Naruto greeted. He then sat down in the chair next to her while giving her a large grin. "Are you excited about being here?" Naruto asked. I'm a little nervous about this," Hinata admitted. "Don't worry about it. You're gonna do great," Naruto told her. Hinata blushed at the praise and just played with her fingers. It was then that the classroom door opened and 2 shinobi stepped inside. They were wearing a Chunin's uniform and were carrying boxes full of books. One had his brown hair and a pineapple style with a scar across the bridge of his nose. The other one just had silvery blue hair that fell to his shoulders. "Hello everyone," the one with the scar said as he set the boxes on the desk and faced the class. "My name is Iruka Yamino, one of your instructor for your classes at the academy," Iruka said. "I'm Mizuki Taoji, another one of your instructors," the other man said. "Now before we start with getting you all settled in for your classes, why don't we all introduce ourselves? I'll call you in alphabetical order and you'll come to the front and tell us your name, likes, dislikes, hobbies, and dreams for the future," Iruka explained. First up, Shino Aburami. The boy with a large coat walked to the front of the room and faced everyone. "My name is Shino Aburami. I like most types of insects. I dislike people who kill insects for no reason. I like to collect and observe different types of insects. My goal for the future is to one day become the Aburami clan head." "Thank you Shino," the Aburami heir walked back to his desk quietly. Next up, Choji Akimichi. The round boy walked up to the front of the room after he left his bag of chips on his desk and faced everyone with a nervous grin on his face. Hi. I'm Choji Akimichi. I like to eat different foods, and my friend Shikamaru. I dislike people who discriminate the Akimichi clan because of how we maintain our jutsu and people who make fun of me for being big-boned. My hobbies are relaxing with Shikamaru and testing my Kachan's cooking. My dreams are to become the next head of the Akimichi clan." After Choji walked back to his seat, Iruka looked at the attendance board and said who was next, Sakura Haruno. The girl with the pink hair walked to the front of the room and stood before the class with a look of superiority around her, like she was the boss of the classroom. "My name's Sakura Haruno. I like my hobbies are and my dreams for the future are." Every time she paused, she would look at the boy with the duck butt hair and squeal, making the boy groan and slam his head into his desk. "And your dislikes?" Haruka asked, already crying on the inside because of the fact that this was a fangirl. People who are stupid. Sakura roared. After she walked back to his desk, Haruka called out the next name. Hinata Hyuga. After some words of encouragement from Naruto, Hinata walked to the front of the room and faced the class. Hello, I am Hinata Hyuga. I like SW sweet foods and spending time with my friend Naruto. I dislike people who look down on others and seafood. My hobbies are FL flower pressing and G gardening. My dreams for the future is to change the way of the Hyuga clan. After walking back to her seat quickly, the next name was called up. Kiba Inuzuka. The boy with the dog raced down to the front and faced everyone with a feral grin. I'm Inuzuka, and this is Akamaru. I like spending time with the dogs at my clan compound and my buddy here. I dislike cats and people who hate dogs. My hobbies are playing with Akamaru and training. My dream for the future is to become one of the best ninja in the village. Shikamaru Nara. When nobody came up, Haruka looked around the room until he saw the sleeping boy. Shikamaru Nara. Haruka yelled. He was about to yell again when he saw Choji raise his hand to stop him. Choji then turned to Shikamaru and said, Shikamaru, your mother's here. As fast as lightning, Shikamaru jumped out of his seat while looking around fearfully. When he didn't see his mother, he looked at Choji with a bored expression. Choji, that was cruel and heartless, Shikamaru told him. Now that you're awake, maybe you would like to introduce yourself to the class. Haruka asked with a look on his face that just dared him to say no. Troublesome, Shikamaru muttered as he trudged to the front. I'm Shikamaru Nara. I like relaxing and playing shogi. I dislike troublesome things like extra work. My hobbies are cloud watching and resting. I don't really have a goal for the future, it's too troublesome to think of one. Most of the class snickered at his introduction, while Haruka and Mizuki just sighed. They already knew to expect this from Nara, but it was worse than they thought. Haruka just shook his head and called out the next student. Sasuke Uchiha. The boy with the duck-butt hair walked to the front of the classroom and looked at them with an air of superiority around him. My name is Sasuke Uchiha, a member of the great Uchiha clan. I like my family and onigiri. I dislike those who are weak and pathetic. My hobbies are training to get stronger. My goal is to one day surpass my brother Itachi. Haruka nodded as he watched Sasuke walk back to his seat. He looked down at the sheet and bit back a groan when he saw the next name. He considered skipping over it but decided that it wasn't worth the trouble. Naruto Uzumaki. Neither Naruto or Hinata missed a small hint of disgust when Haruka called him out. After being Naruto's friend, Hinata was able to see all the looks of hatred and disgust that were thrown Naruto's way. She asked him why they did that, but Naruto truthfully told her that he doesn't know. The young Uzumaki jumped to the front of the room and faced the class with a big fox-like grin. My name's Naruto Uzumaki, Dadabeo. I like ramen and spending time with my friend Hinata-chan. I dislike mean people and those who think they're better than others. My hobbies are training and hanging out with Hinata-chan. My goal for the future is to become Hokage. As if anyone would let you rule the village you tried to destroy. Were the thoughts of the two academy instructors. Once he was back in his seat, Haruka called up the last name of the list. Ino Yamanaka. The blonde-haired girl walked to the front of the room and faced the class. I'm Ino Yamanaka. I like all types of flowers and spending time at my family's flower shop. I dislike mean people and idiots who think they're better than me just because I'm a girl. My hobbies are working at the flower shop and helping my parents. My dreams for the future are to win the affections of Sasuke-kun. Sasuke just banged his head into the desk again, making a nice indentation of his face on the wood. Haruka could see that she was a fangirl, but wasn't lost to the forbidden side of the kunoichi just yet. A simple push in the right direction would help her. Well, it's a pleasure to meet you all. I hope that you all achieve your goals and become strong shinobi who will work to make Konoha prosper, Haruka said. Now then, how many of you know a jutsu? Naruto, Sasuke, Hinata, and Shikamaru raised their hands. Okay then, come up to the front of the room. The four kids did so and Haruka continued. Can you demonstrate them to the class please? I'll go first, that way it won't be too troublesome, Shikamaru said as he stepped forward and faced Naruto. He then held his hands in the seal, and everyone watched as his shadow went and connected to Naruto. Shadow possession success, Shikamaru droned as he rested his hands at his side, making Naruto do the same. Hey. What gives? Naruto cried as he struggled to control his movements. Shikamaru then reached behind him, making Naruto reach behind him. He then made Naruto grab the ruler on the desk and use it to poke Sasuke. The Uchiha growled and ripped the ruler away from Naruto while giving him a glare. Why are you glaring at me? He's the one making he do this. Naruto protested. Sasuke then went and glared at Shikamaru, who released the jutsu and stepped back. Troublesome, I would have made him poke Hinata, but then she would have gotten mad at me, and an angry woman is more troublesome than you being angry, Shikamaru explained. Okay, enough with that, now let's get on to seeing what the others have to show, Haruka interjected. I suggest that we go outside for my jutsu, it's big, Sasuke told him. Haruka nodded and said to the class, we're going outside to view the rest of the jutsu. The class cheered as they stampeded out the door, leaving behind a large dust cloud. After clearing away the dust, Haruka and Mizuki saw that Naruto and Hinata were still inside. Naruto was patting Hinata's back since some of the dust got into her mouth. When she was done coughing, the two raced outside with the rest of the class. Haruka and Mizuki just performed a shunshin to get there. Okay Sasuke, perform your jutsu, Haruka said once he was sure that everyone was outside. Sasuke nodded and performed several hand seals before taking in a deep breath and declaring, Kaiten. Great fireball jutsu. A large fireball shot out of Sasuke's mouth and went into the sky where it evaporated into the clouds. Impressive Sasuke. Haruka said as he and most of the class cheered. The ones who didn't cheer were Shino, Bekasu it roasted a few insects in the sky, Shikamaru, because it was too troublesome, Hinata, because you guys don't like Uchihas, and Naruto, because he didn't feel like it. Alright, Naruto, how about you go next? Haruka suggested. Yosh. It's my turn. Naruto cheered as he ran to the front of the class and faced a row of practice targets. He made the correct hand seals and took in a deep breath before crying, Kaiten. Fire bullet jutsu. Several fist-sized fireballs flew out of his mouth and impacted against the targets, burning them to pieces. Don't use our equipment as firewood you blockhead. Haruka yelled as he whacked Naruto on the head with his clipboard. Naruto held his head in slight pain as the tendrils in his body wiggled around in anger. Now Hinata, let's see what you can do, Haruka said as he and the class faced the shy girl. She took a deep breath before walking to the front of the class and made a chain of hand seals. Byakugan. Hinata cried as the veins in her eyes bulged and her Byakugan activated. Good. You can already activate your Taijutsu, Haruka said as he made a mark on his clipboard. I can also perform the E8 trigrams. E8 palms, Hinata said. Is that so? Use Naruto as an example of what it can do. Consider this punishment for ruining academy equipment, Mizuki said. Surprisingly, neither child had any argument about this. Don't worry about it Hinata. Just relax and you'll do fine, Naruto reassured her when he saw her apologetic look. Hinata took a deep breath and slipped into the Jyokin. She then darted forward and began to hit Naruto with her pointer and middle fingers. 2 palms. 4 plams. 8 plams. When she was finished, she jumped back and watched as Naruto stumbled forward. She then ran towards him and caught him as he fell down a little. Wow, you're getting better and better with your training. Naruto exclaimed. Hinata just blushed from the praise and opened up the closed tenketsu. Now let's go back inside so we can go over what you'll be learning, Haruka said. The class moved back inside, though Hinata had to help Naruto a little since he was still sore from her attack. Once they were back inside, Naruto was dying on the inside. Why? Because from what Haruka and Mizuki were telling them was that most of their classes would consist of going over theories, mathematics, and history. What did theories have to do with becoming a ninja? He did lighten up when he heard that they would be doing some taijutsu sparring every 2 days and that they would be doing chakra control exercises every day. Kami knows that he needs it desperately. They were let out for lunch an hour later and everyone went to their own corners. Naruto and Hinata sat under one of the trees that was littering the area to eat their lunch. Naruto had brought some of the sushi that Tsunade bought for him every once in a while. Hinata had a bento box that her mother had made for her. So Hinata, when is your sister coming out of you mother? Naruto asked as he popped a sushi roll into his mouth. She said that it's supposed to next month, Hinata told him as she chewed on some rice. I wonder what it's like to have a little sister, Naruto said as he looked at the sky. Maybe Hanabi will treat you like one if you come over often, Hinata suggested. Naruto nodded and chewed on some more sushi before he looked out of the corner of his eye and saw that Hinata looked down for some reason. Naruto hated to see his friend sad for any reason and would do anything to cheer her up. So he sent a small thread stealthily through the grass over to her feet before it slipped inside her sandal and began wiggling around. Hinata gasped as she felt the tickly feeling on her foot. She looked over to Naruto while biting her lip to see him looking away innocently, too innocently. Naruto-kun, what are you dohohoing? Hinata whistled while her shoulders shook from her soft giggles. I have no idea what you're talking about Hinata-chan, Naruto replied while laughing on the inside. Plihahistahap Naruto-kun, Hinata managed to giggle out. Naruto complied and retracted the thread, but not before it ran across her toes, causing Hinata to gasp out in surprise. What's got you looking so down? Naruto asked. I was just feeling a little sad for you, Hinata admitted, making Naruto confused. Why me? Naruto asked. Because you don't have a family like me, Hinata said. Naruto shook his head and said, "You don't have to worry about me, it doesn't hurt as much as it used to." Hinata just nodded and continued eating with her friend. After everyone had lunch, they moved into the courtyard where there were fighting rings in the dirt. Iruka and Mizuki were standing before the entire class waiting for everyone to gather around. "Okay everyone, we're going to hold jutsu matches to see how skilled everyone is. When your name is called, step into the arena," Iruka explained to them. "You will fight until one of you ends up outside the arena, one of you gives up, or I call the match. First pair up is Choji and Shikamaru," Mizuki announced as he read the names off of the clipboard. The two friends stepped into the arena, but Choji looked extremely nervous. "Iruka-sensei, I don't want to hurt my friend," Choji said. Iruka sighed and said, "It's just a Taijutsu match, Choji, and I highly doubt anybody here can hurt somebody too much." Naruto just grinned on the inside, too bad nobody knew about his abilities. Shikamaru sighed and said, "I forfeit, it would be too troublesome to fight anyway." Iruka sighed and gave the win to Choji. Mizuki just put some marks on his board and called out the next pair. Kiba and Renji. Kiba jumped into the field after he left Akamaru underneath a shady tree. His opponent was a civilian who had a smug look on his face. "Didn't want you weak little puppy getting hurt." Renji sneered. Kiba just growled and glared at him. Iruka, not wanting to see an angry Inyazuka get angrier, just started the match. Kiba leapt forward and dealt a punch to Renji's chest and sent him flying. He landed just short of the ring and leapt to his feet with a snarl. Renji ran towards Kiba and sent a sloppy punch at him. Kiba just scoffed at the attack and knocked the punch away before he tripped him and held a fist to Renji's face. "Forfeit," Kiba growled. "I give up." Renji cried as he looked at Kiba with fear. "Winner, Kiba," Iruka declared. The Inyazuka got off of the civilian and walked back to where he left Akamaru and put him back on his head. Iruka then decided to call out the next set of fighters. Sasuke and Naruto. Many of the female portion of the class cheered when they heard the Sasuke's name was called. Naruto walked into the after getting a good luck from Hinata, the only female that didn't cheer for Sasuke. "Are you two ready?" Iruka asked. "Let's get started already," Naruto shouted as he settled into his stance. His knees were bent, the right side of his body was facing Sasuke, and his right arm was positioned in a horizontal angle across from his chest. His left arm was set in the same position, but it was behind his back. "HN," was all that Sasuke said as he slipped into the Uchiha's interceptor fist. "Begin." Iruka began the fight and stepped back, waiting to see what would happen. Neither of the two boys moved, each one was waiting for the other to start first. "Well, what are you waiting for?" Sasuke asked. Naruto smirked and said, "I'm not gonna make the first move, that would be stupid, unless you are absolutely sure that you're going to win." "Then I guess I'll start us off," Sasuke said as he darted forward and aimed a punch at Naruto's chest. The blonde boy ducked under Sasuke's outstretched arm and hit Sasuke under his arm, knocking him off balance before Naruto shoved him backwards with a good shoulder to the stomach. "Had enough?" Naruto asked as he watched Sasuke get his bearings. Naruto was crying on the inside because his poor ears were being assaulted by the loud protests of Sasuke's fangirls. "DRRR, take this." Sasuke roared as he darted forward and tried to deliver one powerful punch after another. Naruto was able to block most of them, but a couple were able to hit him on his shoulders, and one grazed his cheek. The Uzumaki then fell backwards and used his feet to kick Sasuke in the chest, making him back off for a moment. Naruto took the time to massage his right shoulder while Sasuke was planning his next move. The two of them then darted towards each other again. "Wow. They're really going at it," Kiba exclaimed. "Yeah, what do you think about this, Shikamaru?" Choji asked as he ate his chips. "Troublesome, I can see that they're really skilled fighters," Shikamaru said. "The only one who doesn't look surprised is Hinata." "Hey Hinata, doesn't Sasuke look amazing?" Sakura asked as she stared at the Uchiha with hearts in her eyes. I'm just surprised that he's able to keep up W with Naruto-kun," Hinata said. "What are you talking about? Sasuke's the best. There's no way he'll lose." Sakura protested, making the surrounding people lose their hearing for a moment. After she regained her hearing, Hinata said, I've sparred with Naruto-kun, he's stronger than how he's fighting right now." Sakura just huffed and went back to watching the fight, or more importantly, watching Sasuke while mentally undressing him. Sasuke was standing on one side of the arena while taking some deep breaths. On the other side, Naruto just stood there, not having even broken a sweat, courtesy of his ungodly stamina. Before either of them could make their next move, Iruka appeared between them. "That's enough. We've seen where each of you stand, now let's get to the other fights," Iruka said. "Wait a minute. Who's the winner?" Naruto asked. Iruka glared at him and said, "It's a draw, you were both evenly matched." Sasuke glared at Naruto, but the Uzumaki just ignored him. Just wait you nobody, I'll make sure that you know that your place is beneath me, Sasuke growled as he walked away to brood. Mizuki, who's next? Iruka asked. Sakura and Hinata, Mizuki said as he read the pair off of the board. The two girls had entered the ring and Hinata was taking deep breaths to calm her nerves. Once I'm done with you, I'm going to beat that blonde baka for taking Sasuke-kun's win. Sakura growled. Something in Hinata snapped and she just wordlessly slipped into the Jiokin and waited for Iruka to start the match. What's the matter? Too scared to talk to me? Sakura taunted. Naruto was about to yell at her to shut up when he saw the look on Hinata's face. Something told him that he should just watch. As soon as Iruka started the match, Sakura ran forward and sent a sloppy punch towards the Hyuga heiress. Hinata dodged the blow and flew at Sakura before she began to strike at her tenketsu. Once Hinata jumped back, Sakura fell to the floor in a heap, ending the match. Don't you ever insult Naruto-kun again, Hinata said in a dark tone, without a single stutter. The winner is Hinata, Iruka stammered as he watched the short match. Hinata walked back to Naruto's side before she snapped out of trance she was in. As she looked around, she saw the pile of limbs that was formerly Sakura. Did I really do that? Hinata asked. After getting a confirming nod from Naruto, who felt like he couldn't trust his voice, Hinata fainted and fell into Naruto who quickly caught her. I thought we finally got over the fainting, Naruto sighed as he went and propped Hinata up against a tree before sitting down next to her. While he was waiting for her to recover, the last few fights had occurred, the only one that was at least interesting was with the Ino girl. She was one of the few females that was able to fight like she had some skill. Of course, she wasn't as good as Hinata in Naruto's opinion, but he saw that she was a good person to be in second place for female fighters. While the teachers were going over the results of the spars, Naruto needed to wake up Hinata. But this time she seemed to be in a deep state of unconsciousness. Naruto had poked her and shook her but didn't get any results. Naruto then got a bright idea, he stood a good distance away and shouted, Hinata, the last cinnamon roll is being sold right now. What? Hinata screamed as she shot straight up and grabbed the collar of Naruto's trench coat while giving him a crazed look. Where is it? She screamed as she shook him like a madman or madwoman. Hey. You're awake. Naruto exclaimed, completely ignoring the fact that Hinata was about to Jiokin him for the location of the imaginary cinnamon roll. This seemed to jolt Hinata back to reality as she observed what was happening around her. Her hands were tightly gripping Naruto's coat, she was practically face to face with him, and the other students were staring at her with amused looks. Beep. Was all Hinata could say before her face turned into a tomato and she fainted again. Naruto sighed as she fell forward into his arms. Probably not my best idea, Naruto muttered as he set Hinata against a tree before facing the rest of the class. Anyone got something smelly? Naruto asked. Choji stepped forward and handed Naruto some smelling salts. Naruto thanked him and held the smelling salts under Hinata's nose. Hinata opened her eyes and shot up. She looked around and saw that everyone was staring at her, causing her to burn with embarrassment. You're not going to faint again, are you? Naruto asked. Hinata just shook her head, not trusting her voice at the moment. Okay kids, we're going back into the classroom so you can get your textbooks, Iruka announced as he ushered everyone inside. Naruto sighed as he walked back inside, this was an eventful day. So this part ends here. Alright, that's it for today's video guys, let me know in the comments section how was the story and also don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I will meet you in another video, bye bye.